Hi, my name's Dave Adams, you're watching The Core Mechanic, and today we're doing a designer spotlight on Antoine Bauza. Antoine Bauza is a French-born game designer who graduated from his studies with a degree in chemistry and computer science, and then went on to complete a master's in video games. He fell in love with board games before entering into the profession of teaching for about 3 years, during which time he worked part-time as a bit of a hobby, bit of a part-time job, designing board games. In 2010, he had the success of 7 Wonders, which gave him the ability to take on board game design full-time. But among his achievements as a game designer, he's also a published author, having published children's books with French names I couldn't possibly have a chance of pronouncing, as well as some RPGs. He's also since then taken on lecturing jobs, talking to students about board game design, video game design, and significantly, how board game design can inform video game design. Antoine Bauza published his first game in 2007 with a game which I believe is pronounced Chabarinth, kind of like labyrinth with a CH, but I couldn't find anyone doing an English translation or pronunciation of the word, so we're just going to go with Chabarinth for the moment. In 2008, he produced one of my favourite games of all time, Ghost Stories. A cooperative game, brilliantly designed with several expansions, has really stood the test of time. In 2010, however, was when his success really skyrocketed with the release of 7 Wonders, which went on to be a Spiel des Jahres winner. In 2010, he also produced the game Hanabi, which coincidentally also won the Spiel des Jahres, but not until 2013, and I haven't as yet been able to find the story as to why this game that was published in 2010 didn't win the Spiel des Jahres until 2013. If you know the story, if you can find the link to the story, please let us know in the comments below. In 2011, he released the game Tekenoko, a wonderful little tile-laying set collection with this great little panda bear, and you're in the Emperor's garden looking after the gardener, looking after all the bamboo. It's a great little game. In 2012, he released the other game that's on Mike's list, Tokaido, which is just a wonderful, beautifully designed, another set collection game, but you travel through Japan, a wonderfully themed game. In 2013, he released Rampage, which was initially known as Rampage until the game designers of the original video game Rampage kind of complained about it, sent through a cease and desist, and they had to change the name to Terror Meeple City. However, it's a dexterity game, your monsters destroying buildings, it's fun, it's hilarious, it's just it's a hoot if you ever get a chance to play it. In 2015, he released 7 Wonders Duel, which was more of a competitive 2-player version of 7 Wonders, some similar theming, that sort of genre, but it was recommended by the Spiel des Jahres committee, though not finally nominated, but still high praise and high honours for it. Yet to be released, though, at this stage is Attack on the Titan. It's got big expectation because of the anime, and people are really eagerly anticipating it. And what we've seen of the game so far is there's some very cool 3D features to the game that you actually get to manipulate, including a giant Titan, which you put pieces on the Titan. It looks great. Now, we've already mentioned some of Antoine's achievements as a game designer, including winning the Spiel des Jahres twice. One, the Kinderspiel, which is the Connoisseur Award, and the other, just the straight Spiel des Jahres, which is more of a family-orientated award. However, it's not those awards that really impresses Antoine the most. The thing he loves the most, and I kind of like his reason for it, is all the little awards from around the globe that he gets. What it means to him is that his game has been enjoyed globally by families everywhere, and he likes to know that his games are being appreciated with an international audience from all around. He likes to have that reach. I mean, of course, ultimately the thing he appreciates the most is the income he makes, because it means he gets to make more board games, and who doesn't love doing what they love doing? Antoine is quite well known for being an innovative designer and not relying overly heavily on any one sort of mechanic for producing his games. Let's break a few down, for instance. His big successes, including Ghost Stories, which is a tower defense game that's cooperative, that uses dice rolling and grid movement. You've got Seven Wonders, which is it's a competitive game, but it's a civilization builder that uses set collection as well as drafting. Then you've got Hanabi, which is again cooperative, but this game uses limited information and is about deduction and communication. Tekenoko is a tile placing game that uses set collection, but it's also about dice rolls and movements, and you're manipulating pieces, and it's really trying to use the board fully while you collect these sets. So there's not a lot of similarity in his games, and I think that's what he's well known for. And even in Tokaido, which is just a straight, it's such a beautifully simple idea of set collection, but done in a creative, innovative way of journeying across Japan, and the movement mechanic is a wonderful use of the last player always goes first. So the last player is the first to go, and they can move as far as they want along the board. So there's no dice rolling to move, there's no playing cards to move, there's no set order. You can move as far along as the board as you want to score whatever points you can. And if you jump ahead in front of anyone, then you're going to wait until you're the last in line, and then you get to have your next turn. And these ideas, these mechanics come together, and they're always providing what Antoine Bauza calls an experience. He's big on the experience. In fact, if anything was to define Antoine Bauza as a game designer, it's that he is always interested in what the players experience when they play the game. And that becomes the basis for the sorts of things he looks at, the key indicators he looks for when his games have been successful, and the sorts of questions he asks during game play testing. And on that, it's probably worth looking at some of how he designs. For Antoine, it's not about having grids and maps and maths and all that worked out. For Antoine, he sees it as an intuitive process where he genuinely feels like he's making games that he just loves or would love to play. And so there's almost this sense of going with your gut with Antoine. He makes games which he hopes that people walk away feeling like either that they want to replay the game, and preferably they want to replay it right away, but also that they've experienced something. So in Tokaido, it's this experience of going on a journey. In Seven Wonders, his main concerns with Seven Wonders was that he didn't have a game for his game group that fitted 7 people easily, that had no downtime. And so he created one. But what he really wants people to walk away with is this sense of constructing and building this civilization. So with Antoine, the games aren't just the mechanic. He sees the mechanic as a natural progression of the theme. And he always starts with this theme. He has this theme that he wants to produce and build and create over time. And so all his games are strongly thematic. But Antoine also feels like his games reflect him in some way. And if they reflected anything about him most, he hopes they reflect that he's not a competitive gamer. And what that means is that for Antoine, cooperative games seem to come more easily for him, as opposed to the competitive ones. He wants people to be a part of the experience, to be part of this journey or this story that he's telling. This means for him that no design process is the same twice. For Seven Wonders, the mechanics and the rules and the ideas were very structured, came to him very quickly. There was very little development that went from the start of Seven Wonders, his initial concepts, through to the finish. There was few changes, updates, that sort of thing, but not a great deal, as opposed to Kaido, which he says was just a much longer process. In fact, he started it, had to put it aside, came back to it later, was waiting on inspiration ideas, and eventually he moved away. He initially was going to do Tile Lane, I think, and then he came back and changed it to just a board. And so for him, the process is always different. That's what stimulates him about the design process, is that every time is different. The one thing that he is meticulous about is his is the time he spends playtesting. And this is a fundamental, rigorous moment for him. He's not really big into the open design network of sending out print and plays and that sort of thing, but he does have intense player time where he sits down, he plays his games endlessly, and then he sends them off to trusted friends to play and provide feedback on. Throughout that whole step, he's watching people. He's thinking about, he says, the questions they ask, which rules they ask him to explain twice, which cards do their eyes look at more often than not, which symbols do they struggle with, or which symbols do they like. So for Antoine, part of creating that experience, that intuitive process, also comes down to how the players interact with the game. And for him, the best information about how his game is going comes through that playtesting experience. For him, it's not about the data sheets or the templates or whatever. It's really about being there in the midst of the players and seeing their reactions, judging their faces, asking them about how they're feeling. And so that becomes a really intense part of the process for him, to the point where he gets tired and sick, he says, of playing his own games. Now, Antoine does offer some advice for new game designers. In fact, he says that don't spend 10 years on a design, just design games with a capital S at the end. Lots of games, big games. Think through game mechanics. He says, most importantly, don't just be restricted to the one discipline. Go out and live life, read books, travel, explore, experience. He says the best game designs he comes out of come from his experience himself. And so you get this real sense of the person in the game with Antoine. Whereas some people might be interested in the story, or some people might be interested in the theme of say, doing just sci-fi games, or doing this particular mechanic, or doing war games. For Antoine, it doesn't matter what game it is. Does it reflect him as a person? Does it meet people on that level of engagement? And it's this very esoteric almost experience of game design. And I really think that there's been a big payoff for Antoine, because he's really come to terms with the player and learning how to meet their needs. And often good ideas are good in theory, but when they don't meet the player, then they just become too niche a market, and it just becomes about, well, is it the right audience? Whereas for Antoine, the audience is everything. I'm not sure how I feel about being so closed off with his design process. I tend to like the idea of more open design playtesting, not just playtesting, but sharing my ideas online, sharing my thoughts online, sharing those things with my friends and getting their feedback immediately and having that discussion. I don't like to be a solitary guy in a room. But at the same time, who am I to argue with genius? It's worked for him, hasn't it? As far as my own designs go, well, currently the design I'm working on, I'm learning more about my own process and what I value in the games. So when it comes to what makes games good, I'm really seeing that is a matter of perspective. And when I started out, I thought, well, maybe there's a secret formula, or maybe there's a secret understanding of games that makes good games. But I don't think there is. I think it comes down to, well, for me, I love the sorts of ideas that I've been having have sometimes come out of, well, I wonder how I'd make that a game, or I really enjoyed that thing. I really loved that sci-fi thing. So I wonder how that could be a game. I really do seem to focus on the mechanics and getting that. For me, the engagement comes in, how do I wrestle with the game itself, and what creates the tension and the drive, and what creates the intrigue, what puzzles my brain. And I think maybe that's for me where I come from in terms of enjoying game, and maybe where I'll probably come from as I design this game. What's going to puzzle me about it? How do I work it through? In fact, in the current designs that I'm working with, it's those mechanics that I've really tried to nut out. And the theme is almost like, well, it's got to work with it, and it's got to make sense. So but it doesn't seem to be. I haven't sat there and thought, oh, what's my theme? Oh, okay, well, how can I make that work? That's not how I started. I've gone, I really love the way this puzzles my brain, so maybe I can do something with that. which is different to Antoine's. And maybe for me, the lesson I have to learn from Antoine is that playtesting is going to make a huge difference. And so I'm going to have to see how that goes. Look, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time to watch this video. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. And thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Love to hear your thoughts. Maybe you've got a favorite Antoine Bauza game. Maybe you've got a favorite designer that you think should be spotlighted. And so long as he appears on my list, I probably will. Until next time, I'm Dave Adams, and you've been watching The Core Mechanic.